And we are back with another episode of a podcast about movies. Um, Fresh off our episode of the Disney Renaissance. If you haven't watched that episode, go back and watch it. It was a
Yeah,
really fun episode. I had a lot of fun on that one.
yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're just talking about movies today. Um,
hmm
I am, as always, Jacob Barber, joined, as always, by Austin Pez Howell. Austin,
Yes.
how's it going?
Hey, I'm good, man. I've got the weekend off, just hanging out. Been watching movies, both theatrically and some stuff at home. Yeah, just filling in a few gaps. So yeah, we're doing kind of a wild card night here on a podcast about movies. No real theme per se, just kind of anything we've been watching, on streaming or Blu-ray or so even theatrically, whatever we've been watching that we want to talk about, or just some good recommendations as usual. A few of mine kind of showed up on a few recent episodes of tournament fights and things. I just wanted to talk about them a little bit more,
Right.
the 30 seconds. And then a few other ones I just went out of my way to watch, just kind of some random things that I had either laying around or stuff I came across on streaming. So yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, it should be. I attempted. Keyword here is attempted um, to do a 24-hour movie marathon. I saw a couple of YouTubers do this, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting. And let's see if I can do that. I'll talk about it on the show."
Uh-huh.
Spoilers: I did not make it 24 hours. Hour 16, I was out,
Mm,
but um, it was a lot of fun. What I did get to, there were different criteria, and I'll talk about each criteria as I bring up the movie. But again, it's just like we usually do with these shows. We'll just go back and
back and
forth,
forth.
and
Yeah.
just talk about some movies that we watched. All of mine were first time watches, so
Mm,
it was,
okay.
uh, it was a lot of fun. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess technically all mine were first time watches. There is one thing I've seen twice, but just because I've seen it twice theatrically, because I saw it with my dad for a second time yesterday. So, but
huh.
just wanted to I'll do that. And then, like I said, two of mine are kind of ones I watched for a tournament fight, and another one for one of me and Henry's shows that I'll talk about, and then just other ones that I just watched for me. So a little bit of mix of everything on my end. And yeah, you said most of your picks are going to come from your marathon, your almost full marathon, three
Almost
quarter
made it.
marathon. You almost made it, almost got him. But hey, I've never really done or tried to do a 24-hour. I've done like 12-hour marathons and things like that, or I've done some theatrical stuff that was kind of long. I remember I did a Saw marathon. It was like 5 movies in the theater, something like that. But yeah, then again, those are short, like quick movies, and then take very
Yeah,
long. Because I know you even had a 3-hour movie and some other longer movies kind of in there. And
I did. There were a
yeah,
couple. Yeah, there were one 3.5 and one just about 3 hours. But I
okay.
I spaced them apart, so I didn't. It wasn't like I was sitting for 6.5 hours in a
Right.
row. I'm not gonna do that to myself.
Yeah, well, I mean, just marathons can be tricky because, even if you get, the best night of sleep ever the night before and you're in good spirits, still just sitting there watching movies can be fatiguing, even just after a while.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because it's the same environment, there's not much movement around. As much as you try to program movies that'll kind of keep you going, it's tough. And yeah, at some point you're gonna fade. So yeah, it's real. I know people that do this thing, or at least they used to in Chicago. One of my podcasts I listen to, in Chicago, they do a thing called the Music Box Massacre, and it's a 24-hour marathon thing. And I think it goes from like, something like noon one day to noon the next day, something like that,
hmm.
for a 24-hour. And most people, don't sit in the theater for the full thing. They kind of check in and out. They go home, take a nap, come back, things like that. So, yeah, it's tough to do, man. But hats off to anybody who can do it. It's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
hmm
uh, so yeah, what's we'll go ahead and kick it off with you. What's the
All
first
right.
movie you
Yeah.
want to talk about?
Well, it's just that I don't know if it counts as like a movie, but I'm a big Jackass fan. So when I saw Jackass Forever, and then always, as with most of these, they put out the point five, all the extra stuff that they shot and kind of put it into its own movie. So I watched Jackass 4.5 on Netflix because I'm a Jackass fan. So as soon as I heard that popped up, I was all over it. And yeah, it's still just a lot of fun. I mean, even these point five ones, it really is a full another movie because they just shoot so much footage that they just always have these stunts that just never make it. There's kind of a viral one going around right now in like sort of a TikTok form or just a quick form, where it's Poopy's one of the new guys, and he's standing on top of like a 4-foot ladder, like not a full ladder, but like kind of one of those mini ladders, and he's got a sledgehammer in his hand, and he's standing on top of the top rung, and he goes, "My name's Poopies, and I'll show me." And then he swings it down and hits the ladder out from underneath him, just falls. And it's the people that made memes out of it, just being like us trying to survive everyday life. I'll show me,
Right.
or whatever. It's become like a little viral thing, and that's from 4.5. Hard to remember a lot of like specific stuff that happens in the movie, but it's your usual Jackass crazy shenanigans. I just love those movies because you just never know what's coming next. Even if you've seen them 100 times, sometimes you forget the order or what's coming. Just seeing these guys and the camaraderie that they have is always pretty fun. And seeing what they do. So yeah, if you like the Jackass movies, I mean, the only people who would ever watch this would be Jackass fans. I'm assuming people aren't just going to stumble on Jackass 4.5,
Right.
but yeah, they're tons of fun, man. And I'm a big Jackass fan, so I was happy that they finally got that released. I didn't even know it was like, I knew they were working on it, and then Jordan texted me. It was just like, "Hey, 4.5's on Netflix." I was like, "Oh, that was quick. All right, cool." I popped it on. I was
Yeah,
like, "All
it
right."
seemed like it just showed up one day. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't advertised or anything. It just showed up. And
Mhm.
I watched it too. Not this week, but I watched it a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I
Mhm.
like the one where they're doing a race and there's nothing in front of them.
Oh, and they
And
put
then
all
they
the
put the
obstacles in front of them
blindfolds
while
on.
blindfolded. Yeah, and they even put like a full like shed. So somebody
Yeah.
like ran into a shed. It's just like a full like one of those like garden sheds. They wheeled one out there, and they were putting like just random chairs and just junk in front of them. Yeah, that's
Oh,
fun stuff.
I can't remember who said it afterwards, but he's like, yeah, because none of that stuff was there before.
Yeah.
What?
What? And they were like, "Wow, way to go, Captain Obvious." I think that was the Poopies guy again. Now that I remember, one of my favorite ones they did, I'm surprised they didn't make the movie, was they dressed them all up as those little clown things like you see at the carnival that you shoot the gun at to knock over the
Oh
little
yeah.
clown heads.
Oh
They
man.
dressed them all up as that, and they had like a college professional like tennis player just serve tennis balls at them and see if she could basically knock and hit him in the nuts essentially, and it was pretty great. She was really accurate. Like they were all just like, "Oh my god, I
Yeah.
can't believe she like nailed it." And it's like, well, I mean, those pros, if you do it 800 times, you can usually hit whatever target you're aiming for. I mean, if they got a
Easily.
tennis player has to serve it exactly into a corner every time, it's they're going to get good at it. So, but yeah, that stuff is a lot of fun, and yeah, it's just silly fun. But yeah, you have to be into Jackass to like it. But I love the Jackass movies. I think they're just really entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, it's harmless entertainment. Well, not harmless for us to
Not hard
watch, not
to
harmless
plot
for
thing.
them.
Although I will say sometimes you cringe enough to where it's like, oh, I felt that one for sure. But yeah, it's not harmless for them, but you can tell at least they have that energy and that camaraderie. And like I said, like you can tell they just enjoy hanging out with each other too, as painful as it might be. But yeah, good times. Jackass 4.5. Yeah, like it.
Yep. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I kicked off my marathon, and I wanted to get one of the criteria that I put on it, and this was part of the two YouTubers that I watched that did this. One was Nathan Hale Classics, I believe is his YouTube
Okay.
channel name, and the other one was the Movie Geek Productions, which is a smaller uh, YouTube channel, and um, he's a fan just like us. He actually makes short movies too. It's a nice channel to watch. And so they did this, and I was like, oh, I have the time. Let's see if I can do something like this. And so I didn't use the same criteria they did. I kind of mixed some of my own in, but one of them was a 3-hour movie, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna challenge myself to watch a 3-hour movie, and so I kicked it off with that because I was like, let's get the 3-hour movie out of the way, and
Right.
that seems like the best way to do it. And the one I chose was 1954's Seven Samurai. I had never seen it before. Yeah, and the other caveat is that they all had to be first time watches, and I was like, all right, I'll throw that in too. So yeah, it was Seven Samurai, foreign movie. If you're unfamiliar with Seven Samurai, what are you doing? It's absolutely a classic.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece in filmmaking. Basically, it's about these farmers in this village who are trying to save their, what is it, their crops or whatever, their rice and stuff, and the village itself from these bandits. And so they try to hire samurai, but they can only pay them in food, and it's a really interesting movie. I expected, so I went in blind because I just knew the title and I just knew that people really enjoyed this movie.
Like Kurosawa, like he's a pretty legendary directing name. You know what I mean? As far as like an oeuvre of films, he might be the most famous Japanese director of all time. Kurosawa. So yeah, it's where you kind of know he's sort of like the, if you had to make a comparison, he's kind of like the Martin Scorsese of Japan or something like that. He makes these big epic movies. And he's pretty famous over there.
And I can say it was epic. I expected more action than I got just from the title of the movie, but it was a pleasant surprise that it was definitely more story driven, and it definitely told a complete story, and I enjoyed that. Like the first half of the movie was them finding these seven samurai, and then the second half was basically them getting ready for these bandits to come. And it really did, it felt like you could almost cut this into two parts. If you don't want to sit down and watch a 3.5 hour movie, you can definitely watch that first part to that intermission, and then take some time and then watch that second half, and I think you'll be okay. But I would recommend watching this beginning to end, as a whole movie. I would, but I can't say that this is one I'm going to go back to.
Yeah, it's a movie that, while it's really good, it does somewhat feel like homework when you're watching it. Like it's one of those movies that it's like, okay, you kind of need to see this because it's a very influential film, and it's a film that everybody should see at least once. I saw it back in college when in my Japanese studies class that I took for a semester, we watched it. Over the course of 2 days. But yeah, it definitely feels like that. I mean, again, like you said, it's very well made, very well shot, very well acted. Everything is top notch. And it's one of those films that is definitely, I think it's more about the influence it had on other movies, because stuff like The Magnificent Seven, which would come out later, in 1960, Western kind of takes a lot from Seven Samurai, because that's a similar thing where it's like this little town hires these seven outlaws to kind of protect them from a greater gang, like a greater threat, which is kind of similar to Seven Samurai. It's almost like the American version of it. So, and there's even movies that have kind of done a similar premise, but more modern with a little more action, like 13 Assassins, which is kind of a one from about 10 years ago with Takashi Miike directing. That again has a kind of a similar premise of this village kind of hiring these samurai to kind of fend off a greater threat. But yeah, it's a classic premise and a classic story that wasn't as classic at the time of 54. So it was a unique concept at the time. But yeah, I could see why. Yeah, you go back and watch it, and you're expecting a little more swordsmanship than you get in the movie. But that's just because it's 54. That they weren't all about the action. So, but it's still worth watching. Yeah,
it's definitely. Definitely, it was one that's been on my radar for a while. It's on HBO Max. It's where I watched it, and yeah, it tells a complete story, beginning to end, and it's definitely worth the runtime for a one-time watch. and just to see the filmmaking and the direction, and the performances are all really good. The fight scenes are all really well done. So it's definitely worth it for that. I just can't say that it's super rewatchable, and that is something that I tend to go for. When talking about a movie that would make like my favorites list. Like I don't know if this is one that's going to make. If I had like make a best of list, like this is gonna probably show up somewhere. But as far as favorites, like that rewatchability just isn't there for me. But I can appreciate it, and it does warrant a one-time watch at least. Like if you're a fan, if you're just a fan of films in general.
Sure. And unbeknownst to me, when I recommended one of the movies I recommended you that you watch, I did not know that you would end up watching two 1954 movies from Toho Company because it's the same distribution company in the same year. So, yeah. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, unbeknownst to me, when I recommended that, I didn't know you were also watching Seven Samurai at the time. So it's a happy coincidence that we'll talk about here very soon. Yeah, there you go. Sounds good. Well, I mean, everybody, I think on the planet has seen it by now, but I took my dad yesterday. I had already seen it, but he had not seen Top Gun Maverick yet. And so I wanted to see it. He wanted to see it. So, and I didn't mind the rewatch. And I also was curious if it would, hold up on a second rewatch, how it would do. And yeah, it's great. I mean, I what's there to say about the movie that everybody's pretty much talking right now and is still making loads of money in its like fourth weekend. I mean, I just looked at the box office numbers a minute ago because I was curious at how Lightyear was doing, and Top Gun domestically is still going to make another like $40 or $45 million this weekend on its fourth weekend, which is nuts. Which any movie would be happy to make on its first weekend usually, which is crazy. I mean, it's going to make $1 billion. It's already the top grossing domestic movie of the year so far, which I don't know if anybody saw coming because a lot of people like me are not huge fans of the original. I like the original Top Gun's okay, but I don't love it. But yeah, this one I think easily blows it out of the water. I think it's going to be talked about in the same circles as some of the other best sequels, ever, or at least ones that eclipse the original. I think this is easily one of those cases with all the practical stuff that's in it. I think people are just connecting to it because it's just a good old fashioned big budget blockbuster that is just out to entertain a mass audience, and it has a little bit of something for everybody. And yeah, it's fantastic. The only nitpicky things I've seen on the online that I can agree with are the fact that the main mission they're on is very similar to the trench run in Star Wars, the Battle of Yavin. It's very, very similar, like down to a few really minute details. I don't know if you've seen the movie yet or not.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, but you'll recognize it when they start talking about some specific things. You'll be like, oh, that's A New Hope. Yeah, it sure is. But that's okay. But yeah, it's well worth your time. I would definitely try to see it theatrically if you can, because I do think it warrants a theatrical experience. Luckily, the movie's doing so well, it's not going anywhere for a little while. It's still making money. So I suspect it'll still be in theaters for another month or two pretty easily. But yeah, I just wanted to echo a lot of the praises that everybody else has for Top Gun Maverick. It's still my favorite movie of the year so far. So yeah, definitely.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's one that I want to watch. I haven't seen the original Top Gun yet either, so I'm hoping that I can just like take a day, watch that, go to the theater,
right?
Watch the second one, do kind of a double feature. But it's hard to do when you're also looking for a job and you don't drive.
Sure.
And you rely on the bus schedule.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Well,
life gets in the way sometimes, but.
Yeah, if you can get to the theater, I would encourage you. So if you can get there, it's worth the trip. I'll say that. So yeah.
Just real quick, you brought up that this is your favorite movie of the year so far.
So far,
my favorite movie of the year so far, and this isn't one that I watched during the challenge, but it's one that surprised even me the first time I watched it. I did not expect this to be my favorite movie of the year so far. Of course, I've only seen 15 2022 movies, so it could very well change. But if you haven't watched it yet, Hustle on Netflix, the new Adam Sandler basketball movie.
I I considered putting that on as one of mine. I didn't get to it, but it was an option for sure because I've heard good things about it. I knew you and Jordan as like basketball fans, you guys would be all over that, another Adam Sandler kind of basketball centric movie, so yeah. But
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah,
It's good.
It's my favorite movie of the year so far, and maybe the basketball part has to do a little bit with it, like a little bias there. But I think Adam Sandler is fantastic in this. This might be my favorite performance of his, like, ever. Like, he does such a good job as this scout turned trainer, training this kid to get ready for the draft. The basketball scenes, the training montages are all well done. Juan Hernangomez, who I believe hasn't like really done any acting until this movie, who's a real NBA player. He was really good in his role. He even forced himself to cry, which was really cool. I wasn't expecting that. Tears were coming out. So he displayed real emotion when he needed to. Lots of, like, if you're an NBA fan, you will like this movie just because of how many NBA stars and past NBA stars appear in this movie. Ben Foster's in it as the new owner.
Yeah,
he's really good.
I'm looking at the cast. Paul, I guess, pops up for a little bit.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards, who, speaking of Top Gun, the original Top Gun, Goose.
No. Anthony Edwards is also the name of a basketball player. There's an NBA player named Anthony Edwards, and so that's the Anthony Edwards that's in this movie.
It says Anthony Edwards, and the picture is of, if you see on the left side of my screen, it's of the actor Anthony Edwards. So that's the actor.
Because I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're both in this movie, but then I saw the name of the character he was playing, and that's So that's a goof up on
Google. I could hurt somebody in a trivia thing.
Just a side tangent, but yeah, Hustle, my favorite movie of the year so far.
Hey, cool. There you go. Sounds good. All right. What was your next official movie?
My next official movie. So I followed up a 3-hour movie. I decided just to go into the horror. Because I know I wanted to pick something that was a little bit lighter than a 3-hour movie, and I know that there's some really good horror comedy out there. And one of the series that I've owned and I haven't been able to, I just haven't popped in yet, is the Critters collection. I have a pretty nice box of the Critters collection here, and so I decided to put on the first Critters movie, which, the 86-minute runtime definitely factored into that decision.
Right after Seven Samurai, you're like watching an 86-minute horror, kind of creepy horror movie. Yeah, that helps. You got to cleanse your palate.
Yeah, and I don't really have a lot to say about this movie. It was a fun 86 minutes. I think the critters, I think their design was really cool. I think the bounty hunters were a lot of fun. I like the family dynamic. What's the kids' names? April and Brad. Your typical brother and sister. Always fighting. But when
Dee Wallace, who played like the mom in every other 80s movie, because she's the mom for me. She's the mom in Cujo, and she's the mom in like 8 million other movies. I've actually met most of the cast of the first Critters movie at a convention. Mm-hmm. I have my box signed by 3 of the cast members, by the sister, by Dee Wallace, and by I'm trying to remember the guy's name who's in it. He's kind of the goofy sidekick guy who runs off with the bounty hunters at the end of the movie.
I just remember his character name is Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie. So I Don Keith Upper. So I've met him too and got pictures with all of them. But I used to have a Critters T-shirt. It was just the T-shirt of the poster of this movie with like the little critters on them. But yeah, it's a fun little movie. It's like, you can definitely tell they were like, all right, we'll do something similar to Gremlins, but we're gonna go a little more hardcore and a little more even sillier. But the fact that they have like subtitles for the for the critters is fun, you know, of like their little conversations with each other. You know, they're
I
like
didn't
cursing
expect
at
one of them to just drop the F-bomb.
drop the F-bomb, yeah, but it's fun. Yeah, because they're about to get shot, and he just goes like "fuck," and then they get shot. No, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, the bounty hunters are cool, except for the fact that they have very impractical weapons. Those hip weapons that just they have to aim from their hip is not very
Yeah.
practical when you're trying to shoot these little creatures. I think they should get some better weaponry, or at least find a way to loosen that from their belt. But yeah, it's silly. It's got a you know, still some you know, freaky weird moments, but it's got a much lighter tone. And it's been a while since I watched the original. I'm actually a big fan of Critters 2. I think Critters 2 is even kind of even more bonkers. If you get a chance to watch it, if you
Well,
liked
I'll be
Critters.
getting around to it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the first one. So
Critters 2 has stuff where like they form a big ball and like roll through this town. Like it definitely does like the big town thing, like most sequels did with like Gremlins 2 and Home Alone 2. It's like we just go to the city, or it's not really a city, but we go into town instead of just out at like the farm or whatever. You know, so it's that, you know, cause a little chaos at the local town. But it takes place a little bit later. Kids are a little grown up, and it's crazier and wilder. But it's Critters 2. I would also recommend if you
nice.
get a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely be into that, especially if it's only. Is it just as long as?
Oh, hour and a half. I mean, you know, yeah.
Yeah, it's
This is
also
out.
86 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, nothing.
Yeah,
Easy.
yeah, they're all 86 minutes.
Yeah, the second one's directed by Mick Garris. It's a different director. The original guy, Stephen Herrick, went on to do like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and some stuff. Like he's directed some things. Mick Garris is actually a more well-known kind of horror director who's done a lot of like just straight horror movies. He's kind of a not like a horror legend, but he did a lot of like the Stephen King adaptations from the 80s and 90s. So he's a horror guy. So he leans into more of like the bonkers horror kind of stuff. So yeah, but I recommend Critters 2. It's good stuff.
Yeah, this is my type of horror comedy, quick 90 minutes, just fun. Those are my type of movies. I will watch those all day, every day. So
there you go. Sounds good, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. I like the Critters. Next one I want to mention is one I watched for me and Henry Confidential's ranking of Adam McKay that I'd heard mixed things about. You know, some people love it, some people hate it. So I watched Don't Look Up with Leo DiCaprio, and you know, some people have kind of been digging it, some people not so much. It's the basic premise, if you don't know, is it's kind of a disaster premise where there's a comet that's kind of off course and starts heading towards us, and it's going to hit us and cause an extinction level event. And Leonardo DiCaprio and oh my God, why do I blank every time I'm on these shows? old Hunger Games, Jennifer Lawrence, yes. Jennifer Lawrence are kind of like scientists who are trying to warn everybody, but nobody is taking it seriously. Of course, it's more of a satire of what might happen, you know, if this actually, you know, did happen. And I think for the most part, it's pretty accurate, because in the movie, there's things where like, you know, there's groups online that say the comet is like a conspiracy theory, that there's not actually a comet, you know, and that you shouldn't believe anybody. You know, they break off into these groups about like, you know, don't believe this person. They're lying. It just becomes like a big smear political thing, you know, instead of actually doing something. They have like 6 months, but instead of doing something to do something about it, they just like argue forever, you know, just the whole politics, and nothing actually gets done. Eventually they come up with a plan where they want to do something, but they just want to mine the comet and then blow it up. Of course, they want to mine it for all this material for trillions of dollars, you know, these corporations. And Mark Rylance kind of plays like a half Tim Cook, half Mark Zuckerberg, sort of social media mogul who comes up with a plan to try to do that. And yeah, it's just it's a total satire of like what would happen, but it's kind of scary in that that's probably what would have happened, as we saw with COVID and stuff. You know, just like, you know, how everybody would be split, and it gets to the point where the actual title of the movie is a hashtag and a thing called "Don't Look Up," where literally gets close enough to where you can see it in the sky, just floating towards them, and there are people that just go, "That's a conspiracy too. Don't look up. Hashtag don't look up." So ridiculous. So I enjoyed it for what it is. I don't know. I think some people just took it as a slight against, you know, whoever, you know, conservatives or conspiracy people or whatever, but like it makes fun of everybody because even the people on the other side are just dopes. You know, like everybody in this movie just dopes, like Tyler Perry and Kate Blanchett are this kind of entertainment sort of news show people that just, you know, they don't take anything seriously. Like DiCaprio and them were trying to talk about this thing, and they're just like, "Well, I hope it doesn't hit my house. I'll have to get another home and whatever." You know, just like nobody is taking anything seriously. It's all fluff, and they're just getting increasingly frustrated. So I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. You know, I'll probably go back to it at some point, but I had fun with it. So I'd encourage people to check it out. I do. I think it was Best Picture nomination worthy. Not really, but
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. But other than that, like everybody's good. There's a lot of good, you know, side characters and stuff. You know, a lot of good actors in the movie that pop up. So I continue to think Tyler Perry's a great actor when he's not doing Medea. So you know, or I just don't care when he's doing Medea. But pretty much everything else he's been in, I've liked him. So yeah, I wish he would do more stuff outside of Medea because I think he's really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed this for the most part as well. I haven't rewatched it since like it was just shortly after it came out on Netflix that I watched it. But like the only negative thing I really have to say about it is Jonah Hill's character. Like I did not like him. It's not even with those. It's not even if like you're not supposed to like him. Like no, like I just didn't like the portrayal of the character.
Well,
I didn't like the character itself.
To me, he was an unnecessary character because all he did was parrot everything that Glenn Close said, which I just didn't need because she made enough of a kind of a fool of herself where I didn't need somebody like just repeating everything she said, you know, and just sitting there like making. I just didn't need the character. I thought it was an unnecessary character in the movie that just made it bloated. You could have cut that character out, and the movie would have been pretty much exactly the same. So yeah, he was the only one I really didn't care for. But yeah, it's not the actor, it's not the portrayal. It's just I think it's an unnecessary character. Period. So he just just didn't need to be in there. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm on the positive side of this movie. So
yeah.
Like I think I even had it like I haven't watched a lot of 2021 movies, but I think it was in my my top 15, top 20. So
okay.
Yeah, it was good. Not best picture worthy, like you said, but
no, but still worth your time. I think it's still a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So the next movie I chose, this was another one of their criteria that I kind of borrowed. It was a movie from your birth year. So 1990. I have a lot of blind spots from 1990. And there were a lot that I wanted to choose, but a lot of them are not streaming for free, and I didn't want to pay $2.99. So I ended up going with a Tom Hanks movie, Joe versus the Volcano, as the year birth year movie. Tom Hanks plays Joe Banks, a hypochondriac who just thinks everything is wrong with him. Doctor tells him he has 6 months to live, and he's approached by a guy whose name I cannot remember at the time at this moment. But hey, you've got 6 months to live, so why not go jump in a volcano? And so it was a blind watch. I went into this completely blind, knowing nothing about the movie, and I kind of like that.
Other than basically, it was like a Tom Hanks rom-com kind of a thing. That's about
Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, who plays 3 characters in this movie, and I think she does all 3 really well. One's a coworker, one's the daughter that picks him up when he to take him to the boat, and then the other one is on the boat taking him to the island that he is going to go jump in a volcano in. And this was a really fun 1:45-minute movie. good Tom Hanks performance, good Meg Ryan performance. I enjoyed the all the stuff with the limo driver. He basically has unlimited money now to do whatever he wants with. Um, which so he goes shopping and buys all this stuff that he, at the time doesn't need because he's gonna die, but he buys it anyway. Buys some nice suits, buys some stuff. Really good stuff with the limo driver. You know, in typical rom com fashion, he falls in love with Meg Ryan, and spoiler alert for a 32-year-old movie. It's all in his head. He is a hypochondriac. He's not actually sick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, this is a really fun movie. I loved all the different settings. The place, the office where he works, was like so unappealing. Like, why would anybody want to work there?
Because it's a drone office, it's just this, one of those things where maybe you take the job and you don't know what the office looks like until you get in there, and or you don't think it looks that bad until you're coming into it, day in and day out.
Right. Yeah, and then all the stuff in the city. The city is your typical city setting, but I really like the setting of the island, and all the the way the characters on the island dressed up. That was really fun. Spoiler alert: they jump in the volcano, and the volcano spits them out, and they live happily ever after, floating on luggage that Tom Hanks, because Tom Hanks apparently needed 4 big suitcases to go on this trip.
Even though he theoretically wasn't going to come back from it at all.
Right.
Maybe, leave it with the tribes people to trade with, I don't know.
Right.
or who knows? Contribute.
Yeah, it was a good Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan rom-com. I haven't seen the other was it Sleepless in Seattle, and is it You've Got Mail?
You've Got Mail, yeah.
I haven't seen those two yet, so maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of a mini trilogy, a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan rom-com trilogy. Yeah, this is kind of the middle one.
Maybe I'll watch those two and see which one's my favorite, and just kind of.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think most people, either really love Sleepless in Seattle or just the '90s vibes of You've Got Mail. But this movie definitely has a cult following. It's one of those cult movies that just kind of, it kind of bombed at the box office famously, but it kind of found a home like on cable and stuff later, and found people who just kind of really dug the weirdness of it, and the premise that is just strange, and yeah, but it's got a good, the supporting cast, like Dan Hedaya. It's like all these character actors, Dan Hedaya and Robert Stack and like Lloyd Bridges and Abe Vigoda, like all these crazy like character actor side people kind of popping up, and yeah, it's a fun little movie, and it's a good breezy watch, and yeah, nothing that's going to totally knock your socks off or anything, but I think a lot of people just kind of like the vibe of it and just like putting it on. It's a nice breezy. It's just another, none of those weird rom-coms with like these goofy premises and ones that have like a budget that just don't really get made that much anymore. Which I'll talk about a movie that's kind of similar to that just these types of movies that don't get made anymore. But this is just definitely one of those. Like your typical rom-com nowadays is just like a pretty low key setting, pretty straightforward story, nothing really out there. And this one was just like, oh, we're gonna make this wacky island movie with this like romance thing, and just like we're just gonna do something totally goofy and just have a little fun with it, and if it bombs, which it kind of did. But you don't see movies like that anymore. So yeah, it's just a fun little aesthetic.
Yeah. So Joe versus the Volcano, I would definitely recommend it. It is on HBO Max. That is where I watched it. So yeah, it's worth the watch.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about 2 of my favorite first time watches for our Animal Attack show that we did on Tournament Fights the other night, that I wanted to kind of expand on as far as 2 of the ones I had the most fun with. So my first one I'll talk about for my next pick is a movie called Slugs, which I ended up being a big fan of. It's a 80s horror movie. It's 88. It's on our favorite streaming service, Jacob, Tubi.
Nice.
Our favorite streaming service, which Tubi has a ton of stuff, man. Like props to them for all the stuff they give, because they have the ads on there so they can get a little bit more things just in general. But Yeah, but I actually own the. This is one I just propped open on my Arrow Blu-ray, so I watched the Arrow Blu-ray of this, and it's just a silly, really gory, fun, low-budget horror movie. But I think, and what I said on the show was, there's these movies kind of like this and like Squirm, where it's like these premises where you don't quite buy. Can slugs really like overpower you and kill you? But to be fair, I think this movie does a better job than Squirm does of making it to where it's at least a little more believable. They're kind of in the sewer systems. They come up and invade their house like through the toilets, like literally they're overflowing in the toilet, and they kind of flow out all over the floor, and people kind of get slip on the floor and then kind of get overwhelmed by the slugs. And they're actually sort of mutated slugs that have teeth. Like one of them bites a guy's finger when he's kind of trying to touch it. They get this nice close-up puppet shot of a little slug kind of biting his finger. But it's got some really gnarly, gory stuff if you're into just kind of over the top like crazy 80s horror, where just guys get devoured and there's like a half skeleton, half bloody face. They just get completely mauled down to the bone, and it's pretty like crazy for a fairly low budget 80s movie. There's a pretty famous scene that you can look up online where a guy accidentally ingests some of them in the salad that him and his wife were eating the night before. And the next day he's at a meeting at a restaurant and he's having headaches, and eventually falls over and passes out, and his head explodes with slugs, and it's pretty crazy. So yeah, it's some really bonkers out there stuff. But much like all the movies we love, I think it's like, similar to Critters, it's like an 85 or 88-minute movie. It's a breezy watch, and it's just over the top. But actually, like I ended up liking a lot of the main characters and some of the relationships that were kind of better than your average B horror movie. And yeah, it was one of the ones I had some of the most fun with as far as my first time watches for that animal show. So yeah, Slugs. If you're into for something short and crazy, yeah. I can recommend Slugs from 1988 on Tubi. So there you go.
All right, shout out to Tubi.
Tubi's awesome, man. Tubi and I always give them props because they have ad breaks, but they're only about every 12 to 15 minutes, and they're only like 60 seconds. Yeah. So like you get a couple of ads, but grand total, it's only about a 60-second cycle, which is tolerable. I mean, I can get up and pee, I can get up and refill my water, no big deal. Right. Come right back. We start up again, as opposed to I tried to watch stuff on Pluto one time, and it was like 4 minutes of ad breaks, and I was like, well, if I do this, I might as well just watch it on cable. Like, forget that, like I do that. So yeah, shout out to Tubi, man. They have a lot of stuff, and they had to get rights to all this stuff because they throw the ads in there. So yeah, props to them, man. But it's not bad for a free service. I like it. So yeah, and they've got a lot of crazy horror movies on there. So it was a lot of these animal movies that I watched in prep for the Animal Attack thing, because I watched 6 or 7 of them. They were like all on Tubi. All the crazy ones that all the crazy Australian movies, all the crazy low budget ones, they're all on Tubi. Every single one of them. So there you go. If you like animal movies, Tubi's your home. There you go.
All right. Speaking of animal movies, I mean, he's not really an animal, but he is a big creature. The next criteria that I wanted to meet was a recommendation from a friend. And so I posted on Facebook, give me a random movie recommendation. And there were a lot of good ones. There were a lot of good ones. I found this one the most appealing, though, because of the runtime and what I was choosing it for. I wanted to choose some that were under 2 hours. And this one is a nice 95 minutes, another 1954 movie that Austin suggested. And that is Godzilla, the 1954 Godzilla. And
the original Gojira.
Yeah, the original. There are a lot of Godzilla movies on.
Actually, can you see my left print right there is actually the original.
Oh, nice.
54 poster, kind of right next to Clint Eastwood up there. So, yeah, I have the Japanese print of that.
Nice. I don't have that. I have Mr. Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
And Batman with the Joker face.
Yeah, there you go. Well, those are just 4 of all the many things I have around my house. So yeah, we'll do it to sometime.
Yeah, I have some that I need to hang up still, some posters, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Which you think I'd be able to now that I have all this time in the world, but
Yeah.
whatever. Laziness is a real thing, folks. But Godzilla, and I will recommend this, and I'm pretty sure Austin feels the same way. If you are watching a foreign movie, watch it in its original language.
Yes.
To get the proper emotion that is intended and everything. It's great. Subtitles. Who cares if you have to read? It really adds to it.
I put subtitle movies in English nowadays just because I'm old and I just anyway. So I put subtitles on anyway. So regardless of whether it's in English or not. But yeah.
But I had never seen this before. I have seen like the more recent Godzilla movies and the 98 Godzilla, and this one was really good. For a 1954 movie, it looked really good. I had a lot of fun with it. I want to go back and watch all the other Godzilla movies now that they have on HBO Max. Like, I want to dive into the series.
This is probably the most serious of the older ones because you know me, you know how much of a Godzilla fan I am. I'm the Godzilla guy. But the reason why I still, even if you're not a Godzilla fan, or when you think of Godzilla movies, you kind of think of the guys in the suits, just having the battles, doing this, that, and the other. But this original movie from '54 is really. It was really a groundbreaking movie because it was commenting on the atomic age, especially from the Japanese perspective, what they had been through with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Godzilla is really an analogy for essentially nuclear or atomic warfare, and the devastation is just kind of in a monster form, because if you look at it, this movie, it's not really a spoiler, but like he's basically tearing apart this entire city, and near the end of it, the entire city is just on fire and leveled, and it's really pretty horrifying. It's not, they don't play it for laughs in this one. It's not silly. It's taken very, very seriously. The black and white photography definitely helps it. I think the beauty of the movie in its horror, like the fire effects and everything, and a lot of that stuff is great. There's horrific moments where there's like that one family that's like ducking down in the corner, and the mom's like, "Don't worry, we'll be joining Dad like very, very soon. Just close your eyes or whatever." And then they all get blasted. Like it's pretty crazy as far as there's some dark stuff in that movie, and it was made just a couple of years, if you think about it, after World War II. After the end of that, I mean, this is only about 9 or 10 years, after the thing is over. So, but yeah, it's this whole thing of just the beast that came from nuclear warfare, essentially, and it's kind of their comments on it just put into this monster form. And obviously we go on to spawn this franchise, but it was originally just made as one of those things. But it's a really great movie if you haven't gone back and watched it, not just as like a monster movie, but as a great just sort of post-war commentary on the nuclear age. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I love the original Godzilla. Yeah, definitely watch this one, not the 1954. Now, the one I saw first as a kid was the 1954 American version called Godzilla King of the Monsters with Raymond Burr, Perry Mason inserted in there. Took like half of the footage from the original movie and then inserted all these scenes where Raymond Burr is like this journalist. He's like running around and talking to everybody here and there. And then during the actual attack, they edit out a lot of the really serious stuff and just keep cutting back to him. He's like on this radio, or he's like recording a thing. He's just like, "I'm saying a prayer, George, for the whole world." Godzilla is now attacking the bay or whatever. Da da da. He's just like narrating this thing, and it's just, it's just not as serious and not as good. So yeah, I recommend the original cut for sure if you ever go back and watch it. Yeah,
as would I. Yeah. Of the 1954 movies that I watched, this one might be my favorite of the two.
Hey, there you go. Well, it's a Godzilla movie. I got him to watch a Godzilla movie, folks. So there you go. An old school one at that. Well, I like it.
Yeah. So what do you got next?
Oh, next I've got. Well, I'll do my other animal movie. So the other one that I had a lot of fun with is a '70s movie from '77, also on Tubi, because of course it is. And it was a movie called Day of the Animals, which I talked about on the show. And the way I sold it in 10 seconds on the show, as far as like to maybe get people to vote for it, is I said, if you've ever wanted to see Leslie Nielsen shirtless fighting a bear in a thunderstorm, I've got the movie for you. And this is the movie for you. So, and as fun as that sounds, it's not like a comedy, although you can have a little fun with some of those premises. But essentially, the movie is like you follow this group who is going to a high elevation. They get taken by a helicopter, like a high elevation mountain, and they're kind of going to do this long hike over a couple of days and kind of hike back down the mountain. But in the higher elevations, there's an ozone radiation thing that is making all the animals above 5,000 feet go crazy and start attacking everybody. So they start getting attacked by birds, hawks, bobcats, snakes, bears, you name it. Like all these people start getting attacked. And the craziest thing about these old '70s movies, Jacob, is that like they're all real animals, and I still don't know how they did some of the stuff in this movie, because there's a scene where, like, for instance, they're all around the campfire, and all of a sudden, like, three bobcats or mountain lions are just jumping on people, and like they're straight wrestling with the people, and they're just jumping all over their backs, and I'm like, I don't know just how they did this stuff safely, if they did it at all. The stuff where Leslie Nielsen is having the scene where he's fighting the bear, there's definitely a stuntman wrestling like a real bear. And I know they had like bears back then, that like wrestled people at like carnivals and stuff, but like I guess that's how they did it. But just wacky scenes like that where you're just like, I just don't know. Scenes with wild dogs just tackling people left and right, like mauling folks, and I just don't know how they did it. So that's what's fascinating about some of these old '70s movies. Is just it's all real and it's right there. And I definitely recommend it. It takes a little while to get going. I will say it takes about 35 or 40 minutes for the first kind of animal attack to start. But if you do, like, it's well worth it, because I said the scenes are just jaw dropping as far as like how crazy they get. So I had a lot of fun with Day of the Animals. Yeah, it's on Tubi. So if you want to see just an old school kind of animal attack movie that's just bonkers, there you go.
Yeah, that sounds like one I will definitely check out. Again, shout out to Tubi.
Tubi's awesome. Yeah. I still have one more movie that'll be on Tubi as well as another service, but yeah. Nice. All right, what do you got next?
So the next movie I got is a Best Picture winner, and for the Best Picture winner, we're going back to 1964. So it won Best Picture in 1965. It's I had to choose at least one musical. I'm a big musical fan, so I went with the musical of My Fair Lady, starring Audrey Hepburn and Rex Harrison. And again, going into this, these are all first time watches. Going into this knowing nothing other than how you can scroll through Netflix, and if you stop, they'll show like a 30-second snippet of whatever movie. Right. That's the only thing I knew. So I did not know what this movie was about. This movie is about a phonetics teacher, and he meets a girl. This movie takes place in, I believe it's London, and her speech isn't the best. You wouldn't call her ladylike. So she goes to his house for lessons, ends up moving in and getting a room there and taking lessons and becoming ladylike. And it's just kind of it's a nearly 3-hour movie with like a 3-minute intermission in between, because it's the early 50s and early 60s. They had those. Well, every movie then is like 3 hours long.
The original West Side Story is like 3 hours, but it has like a 5-minute intermission and like an overture at the beginning, like all those movies did too. So, yeah.
So, this one was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Do I think it's the best musical of 1964? No, I don't. Mary Poppins.
Yes.
hands down. If I had to choose
Yes.
one, I'm gonna choose Mary Poppins every single time. I think it's more fun. I think the songs are more catchy. I think the performances are better. I can kind of see why this one won Best Picture. The songs are good. I don't know if I put them on Spotify like I do Mary Poppins.
Right.
But I'm glad I watched it because I did like the performances. I did like the setting of London, kind of the difference between kind of where the upper class people live and the lower class people live. Like it all looked really good. There were some songs that were pretty catchy. I found myself kind of bobbing along to them, but um, again, it was a really good movie that you know took away Mary Poppins Oscar.
Right. Yeah, I would. I haven't even seen My Fair Lady, but I would probably still vote for Mary Poppins over that. Just I think for
Yeah.
enduring quality, could be one of those things where if we ever talk about Oscars got it wrong, maybe that'll be one of them. Where we say like probably should have went to Mary Poppins, especially even for those sequences where they combine the animation and the live action.
Oh yeah.
Like technical marvel of the time, and just the way they do that. But I don't know if you noticed or not, like Seth MacFarlane, just a fun tidbit, based Stewie's voice from Family Guy on Rex Harrison. I don't know if you caught that in the movie at all.
Okay. Well, now that you mention it, like
Yeah, he bases the whole
yeah,
performance basically on Rex Harrison. So yeah, if you go back and see any other Rex Harrison, or maybe pull up a clip, online later of Rex Harrison, and then just listen for the Stewie, it's in there. So yeah.
yeah, he was really good in this movie.
He won the
I'm
Oscar for
looking.
Best Actor. So
Yeah,
there you go. Like,
I was a little confused. I'm like, am I supposed to like him? Am I supposed to be like, nah, you're kind of a jerk? So like his character confused me, but you know, it is what it is. Like it was a really good movie, really good songs, really good script. The dialogue was good. The musical sequences and the choreography were all really well done. So I mean, it is worthy of the praise that it gets, but um, maybe it's because Mary Poppins is my favorite movie that I'm
a
a
little
little upset.
biased.
Yeah,
No, it's fine. Hey, me, it's in my top 10 as well. So
yeah,
it's a little tough to usurp that role. But yeah, I get it. And now I'll probably never get around to it if I'm being
no,
honest.
no, it's not the
Even
type
if
of
we do
movie.
our musical episode, I've already picked out some of the other bonkers ones I want to watch instead of stuff like that. But yeah, those old musicals are all like 3 hours. It's like that, like Hello Dolly, like all those old ones are just long. But if you can get through them, I guess that's why I liked Singing in the Rain when I watched it and we talked about it. Just because like Singing in the Rain was like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, or 2 hours, something, whatever it was. It was not 3 hours. I know that. And I liked it. It was very breezy. And yeah, much shorter. So maybe that's why that one is so beloved as well. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, my next one is available both on Tubi and Peacock, but I own the 4K disc that I've been wanting to break out for a little while now, and that's a sci-fi movie from 1980 called The Final Countdown. Which I watched, and the basic premise of The Final Countdown is Kirk Douglas. It's here in 1980s, a little older, a little more seasoned Spartacus. Helming a aircraft carrier, a brand new aircraft carrier, in the time of 1980. And Martin Sheen's also in the movie. He's kind of the consultant guy who basically designed the aircraft carrier, sort of the architect of it. So he's on there just taking a tour. They're out in the ocean and they get sucked through a time portal in the middle of the ocean. But I should say the movie takes place off the coast of Hawaii, specifically Pearl Harbor, and they get sucked back into a time portal to the day before the actual Pearl Harbor event. So they're in the day before, they're on December 6th, 1941. Anybody remembers December 7th is the actual Pearl Harbor attack, and they have to basically have this. Well, the first hour of the movie is basically them figuring out what the hell happened to them and where they are and what's going on. But also, then when they do having this moral quandary of whether or not to interfere in the Pearl Harbor invasion and stop it, because they certainly have the means to do so with this aircraft carrier that is fully stacked. Excuse me, fully stocked with, F-14 airplanes, more than capable of taking out little Japanese Zero airplanes, and essentially all this modern technology where they could easily stop the invasion, but they kind of have to decide whether or not to interfere. So it's kind of this fantasy sci-fi scenario, but it was very good. It's very fast. I even just liked a lot of the stuff where you get to see kind of what's going on the ship, the procedural stuff, and them just trying to figure out what's going on and where they are. They're sending out scout planes and all kinds of surveillance stuff, trying to figure everything out. And it's a good little time travel movie. Not the greatest time travel movie I've ever seen, nothing like that. But it was a unique spin, and it was one I've been wanting to get around to for a while. So I enjoyed it. It was a nice little watch. About an hour and 45 minutes. I liked it.
Nice.
It was good stuff. Yeah. Right up my alley.
It's always, breezy watches are always fun to do. Speaking of breezy watches, the next movie I chose is a movie featuring your favorite actor. Now, I go back and forth between a few. Johnny Depp is up there, Robin Williams is up there, Hugh Jackman is up there. Decided to go with a Hugh Jackman movie because I just watched some Robin Williams for a countdown show that Jordan Owens and I did. We did our top 10 Robin Williams movies. That's over on his channel, The Pierce Co. Go check that out. Fun top 10 countdown. Spoiler alert, yes, Good Will Hunting was number one on both of our lists. So I went with Hugh Jackman, and I decided to go with early Hugh Jackman because I haven't seen a lot of earlier Hugh Jackman,
like comedic romance Hugh Jackman from like early 2000s, right?
2001.
Pre-Wolverine Hugh Jackman.
Pre-Wolverine, yes. This was 2001, starring Ashley Judd and Greg Kinnear and Marissa Tomei as well. It's called Someone Like You. They work so the three main leads, Greg Kinnear, Hugh Jackman, and Ashley Judd worked together on a daytime talk show. I can't remember the name of the talk show, but the host's name is Diane. That's in the title somewhere. But they work together. Greg Kinnear plays Ray, the new executive producer of the show. And I think Hugh Jackman is just like he works. I'm not sure what he does. I don't think it's ever actually explained what he does.
He's just around.
Like they're there. They work backstage. And Ashley Judd's character, Jane, and Ray, Greg Kinnear's character, become romantically involved. And then there are plans for them to move in together. And all of a sudden, Ray starts acting weird and the relationship. But it turns out that Jane's apartment that she was living in was already being re-rented, and so she had to move out. And she ends up moving in with Hugh Jackman's character, Eddie. Eddie is your typical womanizer of the early 2000s. He's going to go out with every pretty woman he sees and bring them home. And at first I thought he was just going to be a side character in the movie. I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll see what happens. But he turns out to have a much bigger role, like after the first half hour of the movie, when they end up moving in together. And I really liked the growth of his character from somebody who is just bringing woman after woman home to somebody who, spoiler alert for a 21-year-old movie, starts to develop feelings for this woman that he's living with. And he really becomes like this sort of this sensitive guy, and we can see why, like this past relationship that he was in, like kind of hurt him, and this girl really did a number on him, and so he's helping her get over Ray. She becomes like a Dr. Maria Charles writing for a magazine with this cow theory that you know, male cows or bulls will not go for the same cow twice, and so she kind of puts that into a magazine, and like there's a lot going on, but it's a very simple premise too. It's your typical rom-com, like, you know, girl falls for boy, boy turns out to be a jerk. You know, the friend swoops in, and those two live happily ever after. So it was good. It was worth the one time watch. I'm glad I watched it because I am a Hugh Jackman fan. I think he's the best part of the movie. Absolutely. Marissa Tomei gives a pretty good, solid supporting performance as sort of Jane's best friend. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend it if you are a Hugh Jackman fan, because I do think he gives a really good performance in it for, you know, early Hugh Jackman. This is like his third movie or something like that.
Well, I guess technically X-Men came out the year before this, but he still wasn't a huge star because he was only kind of a side part of that well, and he still wasn't really like a household name yet, probably until really the time of X2 and X3 when people really started to kind of take notice of him. Because I only knew like the stuff around this time. I know the same year, I think. I'm looking at, okay, so the same year he did I think his much more famous rom-com Kate and Leopold with him and Meg Ryan, where he's like the old Duke from the 1800s, and he gets like time traveled into like modern day. That was the more flashy, memorable movie I think for Hugh Jackman that year.
Also directed by James Mangold.
Yeah, so oddly enough, James Mangold working with Hugh Jackman very early, and then later, of course, with Logan and the Wolverine. But yeah, like I guess they had a relationship going back that far. But I think that was the more famous, like, because I hadn't heard of the one you picked, the something, whatever. Like, but I had heard of stuff like Kate and Leopold. So interesting they came out. Interesting, he had two rom-coms in the same year, so that's
2001 he did Kate and Leopold, Someone Like You, and also he did Swordfish the same year as well. Right. That was also 2001.
Swordfish is a weird movie that should be way better than it is, and it's not. Like, given the cast, because it's like Travolta and Halle Berry and him, and it should be better, but it's really kind of bad, hacky espionage kind of, whatever. But yeah, I guess he had a strong year as far as getting his name out there, and then 2 years later he does X2 and kind of really blows up. So there you go. But,
it was also when I watched this, it was just after 10 o'clock at night, so I wanted something a little more lighthearted, and so I knew I wanted to go with Hugh Jackman, and my original choice was going to be Swordfish, and then I saw that this was on Amazon Prime with Stars, so I cheated, and I'm going to do the free Stars trial and then cancel before they actually take the money out of it and charge me for it. So,
well, Swordfish is on HBO Max if you're ever curious, but
I'll get to it. I do want to watch every. I love Hugh Jackman, so the goal is to watch all of them.
Swordfish is a little more famous for one of the things that came out of it, which was Halle Berry doing a topless scene. It was kind of more famous for that than anything else at the time, because there's just a scene where she's like tanning, and she pulls down the silver tanning things people hold up in front of them. She pulls it down. And she has, so it was like the most famous thing from that movie at the time. So yeah, more of a gimmicky thing. That's why some people wouldn't saw it. But yeah, it's more of just like this, internet. What am I trying to say? Like, what kind of cyber terrorism, like early, the internet, Jacob, in like 2001, we're hacking the internet. So it's very much like that in that movie. So if you want to see a time capsule and stuff like that, it certainly is interesting. But anyways, I don't know how we got off on, sorry, a Swordfish side tangent, but there you go. All right. So next one I watched was inspired by a movie that we both loved from 2 weeks ago, a little movie called What's Up, Doc? So I wanted to watch some more Bogdanovich and specifically Ryan O'Neal stuff, because I just am not as familiar with Ryan O'Neal. Luckily, there's another Ryan O'Neal, Peter Bogdanovich movie that came out 2 years after What's Up, Doc, and it's called Paper Moon. So I watched Paper Moon, which was on Amazon Prime. So yeah, it's the same actor, from What's Up, Doc, and it's him and his real life daughter Tatum O'Neal, who kind of plays might be his daughter, might not be his daughter. It's never really fully resolved. But essentially, it's a movie. It's in black and white. But it's from 1973. But it's essentially shot like that because the movie takes place in like 1932 or something. It's kind of post-depression sort of era stuff. They're in like Kansas or Missouri or something like that. But essentially, this little girl's mother dies, and Ryan O'Neal kind of knew the mom, so he kind of shows up, halfway near the end of the funeral, and they basically say, hey, while you're here and you're driving and you got a car, can you drive this little girl to her aunt's house? It's like, a couple of cities over or whatever. And he's, he doesn't want to do it, but he does it. And he's kind of a con man. He does this Bible scam where he goes to, he looks up newspapers, he looks up widows, and he stamps the widow's name on these Bibles, and he goes up there and claims door to door that the husband who passed away had a month ago before he died ordered a Bible for his wife with her name on it, and charges them like $8 for it. And of course he does the whole like, you don't have to take it now. I'll give you your dollar deposit back. And a lot of them are just like, oh, he did that for me, and he sort of makes $8 off. He buys these bulk, he buys a trunk full of Bibles, and just stamps this little thing on each one of them and tells it it's like some fancy lamb gold or something, just something stupid. He's from the Kansas Bible Company or whatever, runs these scams. And eventually, while he's driving this girl around, she wants some money that is owed from the mom. So it's basically like, you're going to pay me or I'm going to come with you, essentially. And they start, but she starts getting interested and becomes an asset at them kind of running cons together. So it's sort of this road trip movie with them running cons together, with her kind of being the sympathetic person that kind of reads the situation and kind of applies her cuteness to the situation, and helps them kind of run some scams, and they're kind of making money. So, and they come across Madeline Kahn, who we saw in What's Up, Doc, who's also in Blazing Saddles, is like a burlesque dancer that tags along with them for a little while, and they run into some bootleggers, which was two other Blazing Saddles people. Like, this movie's full of Blazing Saddles people. Like, I guess Bogdanovich and Mel Brooks both use the same character actors, because it's all these people I know from like Mel Brooks movies also that kind of show up throughout the movie. But yeah, they run across some whiskey bootleggers and just a whole bunch of road adventures with this and what was a real life father and daughter. So she ended up winning. Tatum O'Neal ended up being the youngest Oscar winner ever. She won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for this movie at 10 years old, and still holds the record to this day for the youngest Oscar win. So she's very good in the movie. And yeah, the movie's really entertaining. Not as good as What's Up, Doc. I still like that one a little bit more overall, just because that one just really like blew me away, and I'm going to be revisiting that like a lot. This movie's still well worth your time if you want to see both more of that filmmaker and of Ryan O'Neal, who I'm becoming a big fan of right now. I do recommend it. It's on Prime, so it's a fun watch. It's it's an hour and 45 minutes. Around kind of the magic time we're talking about here mostly. But yeah. But it's a good movie. I enjoyed it and I recommend it. So yeah, it's on Prime if you want to check it out.
Cool. Yeah, it's also I'm looking at the cast because Peter Bogdanovich. He seemed to like to use the same people because John Hillerman is also in both. He played the hotel manager in What's Up, Doc, and he plays a deputy.
Yeah,
Randy Quaid shows up in both What's Up, Doc, and
he plays a backwoods redneck that he tries to trade like a truck for, and he ends up like being like, I'll wrestle you for it, and they have like a mud wrestling match. And then there's another guy, I'm trying to think of his name, but he was also in Blazing Saddles. You'd recognize him if you've seen the movie, but he's like a hotel manager in this movie too. Like a bunch of people that you would recognize nice. Just off the top, like I said, Madeline Kahn is like a shows up for the second act, kind of tagging along with them as this like kind of airheaded, burlesque dancer. But yeah, it's a fun little entertaining movie. I definitely recommend it. Yeah, again, I don't think you'll like it as much as What's Up Doc on that level, but it's not a knock against the movie. Just that movie was so good that it's
Right.
like it's hard for anything to talk, get to that level. But I do recommend Paper Moon and checking it out. So yeah.
Yeah. Spoiler alert for What's Up, Doc. I did. I inserted it into the 128. So it will be on the next episode of my
Yeah,
next 64. It's gonna
my
be there.
episodes, my first one's coming up, and I'm gonna rewatch it and see if it makes it. Honestly, because it's that good.
Yeah.
But I'd have to give it at least one more rewatch. I don't want to just
Right. I did this was my second watch, so
yeah.
when we did it for the show. So like, yep, and it was
Gotcha.
just as good, just as entertaining. So
Gotcha.
What's Up, Doc will be making an appearance. That's the only movie I'm going to spoil, though. The other 63 will be a surprise.
Yeah, right. All right.
All right. So the final movie that I have for the challenge before
or some of our final picks for the evening. What do you got, sir?
This is my seventh movie of the challenge. Unfortunately, after this one, I just my eyes were not going to stay open. By the time I was done, it was just after 2:00 in the morning. So, unfortunately, Uncharted, which was the recent release for the challenge, anything from the last 12 to 18 months. Mm-hmm. So basically, anything from the beginning of 2021 to now. But I went with Uncharted because I was very curious about this movie. I'm a big Tom Holland fan. I think he's doing some really good work. Like obviously Spider-Man, but outside of Spider-Man, like he was the best part of the movie Cherry. I don't know if you watched Cherry. It was on Apple TV.
No, I heard weird things about the movie though. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Russos. So I had high hopes going into the movie. The movie overall, Cherry was a letdown, but his performance was really good. Like I think he's the best part of the movie, and I think he's just putting in solid performances in whatever he's in. And that was I don't think that was any different with Uncharted. I went into it with kind of mid expectations just because of word of mouth. Like people were saying, well, if you're a fan of the game and you've played the game, I don't know if you're gonna like the movie, but as an action movie, it's pretty solid. And I've played Uncharted, but like I haven't like completed a game. Like I started the very first Uncharted game, and I was like, this is a fun game. This would make a good movie. And then several years later, here we are. They have an Uncharted movie, and it was really solid. I think I need to rewatch it because, like I said, it was midnight and I was starting to get tired.
Starting to fade a little bit.
Starting to fade. Like I think I might have closed my eyes for a couple minutes because I opened them and something completely different was going on towards the end of the movie. So
yeah,
I actually fell asleep right after the movie ended and the credits started rolling, and then I woke up and they were doing the deleted scenes because it just kind of keeps going. I was like, oh, this is a very long movie, and I realized they were doing deleted scenes. I was like, okay, cool. But overall, like I think it's a solid action movie. I think Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg worked really well together. I can't remember the girl's name who played her, but the character of Chloe was really good. I think Antonio Banderas was kind of wasted. Actually, I don't think they used him enough. His character was just he was there, and then they just didn't use him much. I won't go into too much because it is a new movie.
How much old school Antonio Banderas have you seen, Jacob? It's kind of a side tangent, but how much old school Banderas?
Not a lot. Like we're talking Spy Kids.
Okay, so you've never seen any of the El Mariachi trilogy?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you haven't seen like Desperado? Okay. No. All right, so I'll say this. Desperado was 95, so it won't be on this upcoming 90s action show, but it'll be on the next one. You should definitely watch it for that because, like, if you want to see old school, like, awesome badass Antonio Banderas, like you owe it to yourself to watch Desperado. And it's just it's a Robert Rodriguez, just really fun movie. You should check it out. It's
All
on Netflix and Tubi. Because of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My one gripe that I have with this movie, I don't know. Have you seen it?
Yes, I
Okay.
have more than one gripe, but yes, go ahead.
The biggest gripe I have is that they opened it with that airplane scene,
Right,
and
from
then
like the trailers and stuff, and they
yeah,
never
which
quite reached
doesn't
that line.
happen until
Yeah.
after
Mhm.
they find spoilers for anybody watching. We'll give
Sure.
you some time to go away. Blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah blah. Okay, so they find the map, and now we're on the plane, but they're put in all these situations before that. But like, it doesn't matter. The tension's not there because we know they're going to survive because we haven't
Right.
seen them go on the plane yet. Like,
Mhm.
why would you do that?
Yeah.
Which I mean, we already know that from the trailer, but I would kind of like. I'm of the belief like if there is something that happens in the movie in like
Hmm.
the third act, leave it out of the trailer.
Mm.
Like, don't put anything from towards the end of the movie in the trailer because we're like, oh well, I haven't seen that yet, so I know he's going to survive this. And it just for me personally, it might be a weird gripe for others, but for me, it's like it kind of takes me out of the movie because like, well, the tension's gone because I know they're going to survive. I know he's not going to drown because we just saw him on the plane and he hasn't been on the plane yet.
My bigger gripe is not so much just showing a few things from the third act. It's that thing you're talking about where they do the trope of like it starts with some crazy scene and then it like freeze frames and then goes, man, I bet you're wondering how we got to this point, aren't you? And let's rewind the movie and go back to like the beginning. Like I've seen so many movies that do like that, or it has like a voiceover to being like, man, this is a pretty crazy situation, isn't it? But that's not how it always was. And we like rewind. It's just like I kind of hate that trope. I wish you just play the movie out and
Right.
just and
Yep.
that.
Yep.
It's like I don't need to know that like at the end, that we're flash forward at the end. Like I just don't need to know that, especially if you're gonna have an opening action scene anyways or something or something to get me into the characters. Like I don't need to see the end action scene as well. But yeah, it's just one of those goofy things that's just a trope that I'm not a big fan of either. Um, there's a time and place for things that start with something at the end and then rewind. There is times where it can work. Pulp Fiction is one example.
Mm-hmm.
How it can kind of start with that, and then you get to the end of the movie and you're kind of right back, where you started. But they in that movie, we don't do that and then go like, and then flash to Sam Jackson and be like, wonder how we're in these clothes and how we got here.
Yeah.
They don't do that, you know what I mean? Like that would be stupid. So
Right.
yeah, that's
So
that's one of the things I kind of hate.
yeah, so that was like my biggest gripe with the movie, but overall I had fun with it. I think the action scenes are all really good. I do like that airplane scene.
Mhm.
Um, I think that scene specifically was taken from one of the games, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I've played the first one and I haven't even finished it, so I'm not sure. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Don't 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 just leave me alone. I haven't played the game. But yeah, no, if they make this a franchise, like I'll watch the sequels. Um, if they just leave it as a standalone movie, I'm totally fine with that too. Like it was just a solid, fun action movie that I had fun watching.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well,
Will it make my
I
top
watched.
10 at the end of the year?
No,
Probably not.
no. Yeah. No, I can see that. So I also watched kind of an action adventure movie. Oddly enough, mine's sort of a not really a treasure hunting movie, but they are hunting for a treasure in it. So I watched the 1995 film by Rennie Harlin, Cutthroat Island, which I've never seen all of. And for anybody who, if that sounds familiar, it's kind of a notorious movie for being one of the biggest. I think to this day it still holds the record for like the biggest box office bomb of all time or something like that, because it was like a movie with like $150 million budget or something, and made like $10 million, like legitimately in 1995, which is insane. So yeah, it broke Kuroko, which was a sub film company that was behind T2. That was doing quite well in the 90s till this movie made them out of business and bankrupted them. So yeah, it was kind of a notorious movie that I wanted to go back and watch the full thing of, because I'd only seen pieces of it, and I have the Blu-ray, and I popped it on, and man, was this movie so much fun. This movie is it's a movie that just doesn't get made anymore. It's like these big spectacle films like that you had in the 90s with just these massive sets and like massive amounts of extras and stunt people and like huge explosions and all these big set pieces and a bombastic score, and just like these movies that don't really get made like this anymore. I mean, it was refreshing to watch a movie where every set piece is like completely real. There's these nutty things where they're going into like these stagecoach chases through these towns that are all sets with just hundreds of extras running all over the place. Massive pirate. It's like a pirate movie essentially. If you know, like Gina Davis and Matthew Modine are like these pirates, and they're getting their treasure. And Frank Langella is the bad guy, and he's a lot of fun. He's chewing the scenery. He's having a great time. But there's full on like pirate ship stuff where there's two different ships, these big battles. It's like pre-Pirates of the Caribbean by 8 years. These massive sword fights with 200 people, just these shots of 200 guys on these two different ships, just all having these sword battles. Just something you just don't see anymore. And it was huge. And I found myself getting really wrapped up to it. The score is fantastic. It's a great kind of piratey sort of score, again, well before Pirates of the Caribbean. But it also has kind of some humor bits. Rennie Harlan would go on to work with Gina Davis again in Long Kiss Goodnight. But it's really cool that she's like an action hero in this, and she's holding her own with the guys. There's scenes where guys are literally holding her down, punching her in the face, which is kind of stunning to go back and watch. But like, she's also treated as an equal in the movie because she beats them up and stabs a bunch of them with her sword throughout the movie and things. But they're having a lot of fun. Frank Langella is having a lot of fun as the bad guy. He's pretty ruthless and crazy in it. But just the spectacle of it all, Jacob, is just something you don't see a lot of movies like this anymore. Like literally movies that could end a company. Like you just don't see that anymore. They're just movies where they just took this gamble, and in this case, it didn't pay off at the time. But I would recommend going to watch it just as a piece of old school kind of, and I say old school of 90s, but like at this point it kind of is of like just these old school cinema, like this and Waterworld were the same year. Waterworld's another big budget giant movie, just massive sets, massive stunts, just big set pieces that you just don't see much of anymore. Everything nowadays would just be green screen, CGI, whatever. You just don't get stuff like that anymore. So I recommend Cutthroat Island, man. I had a lot of fun with it. If you haven't gone back to it, if you only know it by reputation, as being this like crazy. I mean, it's funny because people talk about it being a bomb, and it got kind of mixed reviews at the time, but like it's gotten a cult following over the years, the people who dig it. So, and I think I'm going to be one of those from now on. I did Cutthroat Island. I enjoyed it.
Okay. I'll go back to it. Yeah, because I'm looking at it. It definitely did get bombed critically.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a 39%, but I'm willing to bet that. Oh no, even the audience score is that's. So we'll see. But you sold it very well. So
Yeah,
I will be looking that one up and giving it a watch.
I bought the Blu-ray for like $10 blind, and it was worth it. So that was just me personally. It's not really on. I mean, it's available for rent and stuff, but it's I guess you can get through Prime through the Tribeca shortlist, whatever that is, with a free trial. But it's the only one I see as far as like a free thing. Whatever that is, I've never heard of that. I don't imagine there's many movies on the Tribeca shortlist. But yeah,
I've never heard of that either. But
yeah, but I bought the Blu-ray for like $10. It was well worth it. I had a lot of fun with it, so I recommend going back to Cutthroat Island if you haven't in a long time, or if you've never seen it at all. So I like 90s. I like 90s Rennie Harlan. Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, Cutthroat Island, Long Kiss Goodnight, Deep Blue Sea. I like that. I like those movies. Good practical old filmmaking. I like it. So
Nice.
dig it.
All right. So at this point, my challenge ended. I did have 3 more movies that I was planning to watch, but I didn't get to them. So the other criteria, just real quick, was a movie from the IMDb top 250. And so the one I was going to go with is Doctor Strangelove because I had never seen it.
Okay, Doctor Strangelove,
another 1964 movie.
Really hit or really miss, because it's taken me a long time to come around to Doctor Strangelove. When we did Kubrick on Me and Henry show recently, I'm into positive territory now, but I'm still not totally like high on it. It's you're either gonna love it or you're not gonna dig it at all. Kind of, I'll say that if you ever get around to it. So yeah, there you go.
That was the other one that I decided to put in was a Blu-ray blind buy, and I was going to go with and you can
Still sealed.
Still sealed.
Yeah.
It was going to be City of Lies with Johnny Depp and Forrest Whitaker.
Okay.
And the tagline is just "Who shot Biggie?" So
okay.
Well, this one sounded really good. I didn't know. I still don't know anything about it other than that, like Who Shot Biggie. But it had Johnny Depp in it, and those who know me know that I'm a somewhat big Johnny Depp fan, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was the Blu-ray blind buy. I mean, I could have gone with so many Blu-ray blind buys. If the cover art is intriguing to me, and I can afford it, I might pick it up.
Half the time I buy stuff online and then I put it alphabetically in my thing and I just don't get around to them for a while. But at least with this one, Slugs and Final Countdown were 2 ones I had blind bought. Luckily, Slugs I watched for the animal thing, but Final Countdown just worked out, to watch for something like this. The same thing with Cutthroat Island. I just blind bought that, just because it was a big movie from the 90s. So I blind bought it. But yeah, I do the same thing. I'll blind buy stuff, stick it over there. But then, sometimes I have those days where, hey, I'm scrolling through, okay, this one's still in the plastic. Let me see what we got here. I'm going to pop that in and it's ready to go. So yeah, whatever it is, it could be something I'm in the mood for.
Yeah. And so I'll eventually get to it. And the last criteria, and I wanted to save this for last. I wanted to end on a pretty positive note because I'm a huge animation fan, and I've heard nothing but fantastic things about Akira. So I was gonna end with Akira as my animated movie, but didn't get to it. I know that we've talked about doing the animated tournament fights, and I do have those lists. I just have to get them to you and Jordan to look at and see if there's anything that you would add or take off. It's a little harder for the post the post 2000s because there's a lot that could be added or could be taken off. But pre 2000s, I'm pretty comfortable on that. But Akira is one of those. There were like 3 or 4 from the pre 2000s that I hadn't seen, so I was like, all right, I should get to those before the episode. I'll be the one that doesn't say I've never seen this movie.
Well, I would hope so. With your tournament, yeah. Well, that'd be one of those things where I could be on the pre-2000 show and I've pretty much seen everything, especially if we do our Disney Unsung thing, which a couple of those blind spots I have on there, like Oliver and Company, if we do that show before, then I can fill in a few of those gaps right before we do that. But yeah, post-2000, it gets a little murkier for me personally. But yeah, I not so much like 2000 to 2010, but pretty much from like 2015 on, it gets a little murky for me. So, but yeah, all that pre-2000 stuff, yeah, especially a lot of Disney and DreamWorks and things like that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those. So yeah, but that'll be a good show coming up. Yeah, Akira, good luck with that. I'm not a Japanese anime fan, as we talked about. So that's.
However, I am. So I'm looking forward to watching.
Yeah, there you go. It's on Hulu and Tubi. Our favorite.
Yeah, I own the Blu-ray as well. Like
it's also Tubi if you want.
So this whole, I don't know if I can do it. So
yeah.
So the second shelf, kind of where the yellow spines start, that section of yellow spines. So that all the way to just about the end of the next section is all anime movies. It's all Studio Ghibli, and
There you
so
go.
yeah, I've seen a few. So yeah, so and instead of watching any of those movies that I planned to watch, what did I do today? I watched another 2022 movie to try to catch up, and one that I've heard people say, no, it's not as bad as people say, and then I've heard people say, no, it is as bad as people say. I watched Morbius.
Oh
Um,
boy,
I
I haven't
watched
watched
Morbius
it
today.
yet. I'm morbidly curious, but I'm
I
also morbidly waiting for it to be on some streaming service to watch it.
right.
Yeah,
I think I read some. It might be streaming somewhere soon.
probably.
But I bought it just because of the fact that it sounds like it's going to be connected to Spider-Man, and I'm a completionist. um, so I bought it, and I didn't hate it. Again, it's not one that's going to be anywhere near my top 10 going into the end of the year, but I had some fun with it. I mean, not including the credits and like the total of 1 minutes of post credit scenes. It's a 90-minute watch, and it flew by. And I actually had a lot of fun with it. We set up who Michael Morbius is and kind of how he gets um, to where he's going as far as injecting himself with the stuff that makes him this kind of vampire sort of character. And yeah, no, like the relationships in this movie are all really good and set up really well. It's yeah, I mean it's a solid watch. I thought I didn't hate it. I thought Jared Leto was really good. So the only downfall I had with it was one of the agents in the FBI. Like I just didn't like him at all. Like the way he delivered his lines were just like, okay, why'd you get the role? And it's not Tyrese; it's Tyrese's partner. Because I forgot Tyrese was in this movie. So that's my only like big gripe. Other than that, like, shoot, if this was like a 2.5 hour movie, I might have some problems with it. If it was a 2.5 hour superhero movie, but it's not. It's a 90-minute origin story, and it really worked for me.
I mean, I will say that's refreshing as far as they're following with that. They're following more of the original or some of the Venom stuff, which is under 2 hours, as opposed to the MCU movies, which are like all 2.5 hours at least, and it's a little grinding sometimes. Like, I'm glad that some of these other ones, I can appreciate a comic book movie under 2 hours. There's I can certainly appreciate that.
I will say if you're not a fan of Jared Leto, maybe this one won't be for you. But I'm more or less, I like Jared Leto as an actor. So again, went into this with like somewhat low expectations, and those were exceeded. So I had some fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, it's funny when I went and saw last year see Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and the movie was literally like 92 minutes, and it was so refreshing. I got to the theater, the movie was done, I got out, and I was like, "Wow, I wasn't at the theater for 3 hours. This was nice," as opposed to every other movie I saw like that year, where I'd get to the theater, and after the trailers and everything, there was a 2.5 hour movie, and then I still had to get out and then go home, and the whole thing's like a 4 hour ordeal. Today, when I went and saw Lightyear's about an hour and 40, something like that. But like there was traffic on the way, and it took me 20 minutes longer than I thought it was going to take me to get there. And there was traffic on the way back, and like even with that, it was still 3.5 hours of my life. Which then you reevaluate whether or not it was worth going to the theater. So yeah, I've always appreciated at least a movie that's at least a little bit shorter or can tell a whole story in that limited time. So yeah.
It's a total of an hour and 43, but once that 93-minute mark.
Well, and there's
post-credit
post-credit stuff and things like that, right? So I mean, that's if you stick around for the post-credit stuff. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I would recommend there's there's two mid credit scenes. There's actually nothing like once the second mid credit scene rolls, there's nothing after that. So once those credits start rolling, you're good to like turn it off. So like overall, it was like a 96, 97 minutes with the credit scenes. So
cool.
yeah, I mean, Morbius, give it another shot, people. It was a lot of fun.
I'll give it a shot, but I'm gonna wait till it pops up on Hulu or HBO or wherever the hell it ends up popping up. I couldn't really find any article saying where it was going to end up. I'm sure it'll end up somewhere.
Maybe I was thinking of, I don't know why, but maybe I was thinking of Doctor Strange because that's coming to Disney Plus in like 4 days.
Yeah, that one's coming to Disney Plus this week. Yeah.
So.
Anyways, yeah.
Well, I just looked up the worst Marvel movie is #1 on streaming.
I know, yeah, that's like the first article. It's like, Jesus, come on, let's not be over dramatic, people.
I didn't know Fantastic was still streaming.
I didn't know Captain Marvel was streaming. Yeah.
Elektra is streaming again.
I didn't know X-Men Apocalypse was streaming. It's like, come on, there's worse, dude. It can't be worse than Dark Phoenix, it can't be worse than like Dark Phoenix, which I forget even exists. Come on, it can't be that bad.
It's not. So, for me, it's on the same level as a Venom 2. Like I really enjoyed those. I have a lot of fun with them. 90 minutes in and out.
I like how bonkers and batshit Venom 2 are. So maybe I'll actually get some morbid enjoyment out of it. So we'll see. I'll check it out eventually. All right. Well, we should probably talk about what we've got coming up in the coming weeks now that we've got our wild cards out of the way. So, so in the near future, being next week, now whether or not it'll be the same time, I don't know, because I'll be working. So it'll either be a late show or it'll be another day.
And
we'll see.
I might have a new job, and I don't know what those hours are going to be. So this may not be a Saturday show anymore. We'll see. We'll work it out. We'll talk off.
Whatever day it is, our next show, our next topic, we'll at least say that, whenever that may be, will be our Jurassic podcast. So we'll be talking about talking about our history with the Jurassic Park movies. Kind of talk about them like we did with Scream, can just kind of chronologically go through them, talk about each one, and then, build up to Dominion, obviously the most recent one, which is why we're doing it. Have you seen Dominion yet, Jacob?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I need to.
Yeah, all right. Well, Jacob's going to try to get to the theater this week and see Dominion, and I've seen it. You can go back and watch Henry's show if you want to know my pre-thoughts already, but we'll talk about it on here later. But yeah, well, and I know you've got you're going to crack open that box set and watch Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, which you haven't seen yet. So
look at that! Oh, it's so nice. Look. Oh, it's got some pictures. I'm probably just gonna rewatch the first one, the whole series. So, I mean, not that you need an excuse to watch Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
it's got some bonus discs as well. This looks like a really good, really nice. It's got Jurassic World as well, and then I have Fallen Kingdom separately over here.
I had bought the 4K set when Jurassic World came out, and I had to separately buy Fallen Kingdom later on a separate disc. But yeah, the 4K box set I have is really, really lovely. It's got the same thing, nice fold out pictures for each movie with the disc on the side. Like I like stuff like that. Nice. I like to see some effort into some of these box sets. Nice and pretty. So yeah.
And who knows? Maybe we'll invite Jordan on just to tell us why he loves Jurassic World Dominion so much.
Well, I mean, if he wants to come on and discuss and try to sell me on that, he did the same thing. He had it like number 2, and I was baffled, and I still didn't understand the end of it. So I was baffled, but not to preview too much of my thoughts. But we'll, talk it out and see. But maybe you'll be the tiebreaker for that one once you see it. Because you're either gonna really like it or you're not gonna like it at
That
all.
seems to be the consensus. Like people, there's nobody that was just like, all right, that was a movie.
Well, and to be fair, some of the action scenes are good. I did enjoy some of the action scenes, but it was just under this umbrella of something that I hated, that I just wasn't into. So, and it's squandered potential, much like a certain Toy Story-ish movie that I saw today that had kind of the same problems. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. But yeah, anyways. Henry also had a first time watch 2 and 3. He was not really into them. I'm hopeful you'll appreciate Lost World as much as I appreciate Lost World. I hope, because I really defend and like that movie and think it's, especially with the influx of just I don't know. It's just, again, it feels more old school 90s. I just like it. So we'll see what you think about it. But they're all interesting. So we'll track the journey of the Jurassic Park movies and see kind of where we end up. So. Yeah, that'll be the next show. And then the show after that, we won't go too far, but we're going to do a director blind spot show that me and Jacob have discussed kind of off air. And so, what we're going to do is we each picked, and we've kind of already worked out our picks. But we each we're going to pick 5 directors that we're either really into but haven't seen everything of, or starting to get into, or interested in, starting a journey, anything like that, and just picking a blind spot movie from each of those directors. And I've got the list in front of me, so I can run them down if we want to talk about, just real quick previewing our thoughts, because we already decided we wanted to get ahead of it. But you picked Steven Spielberg, who you love, but you've got some blind spots. So I'm letting you cheat, because I'm cheating on one of mine too and doing a double feature. But I'm letting you cheat on the double feature because it works. But you've never seen Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, so you're going to polish off your Indiana Jones and watch those, which counts. I'm totally cool with that because they tie into each other. So
it's only a trilogy, right?
Yeah, and you kind of need to see that trilogy. Yeah, it's only a trilogy, and you need to see that trilogy because they're great. So, you're gonna watch those from Spielberg. You got John Carpenter and one of his non-horror movies, Big Trouble in Little China, which is a lot of fun, I will say. So I'm looking forward to your thoughts on that. That's a lot of fun. And then you've got Cronenberg with an actual horror movie, The Fly. You got your Fly Screen Factory set up there. I like it. I have the same one on my mantle. It's very lovely. Some good artwork. But yeah, The Fly is a lot of fun. One of my favorite horror movies, so I'll be happy to talk The Fly with you after you see it. We'll dig into that. And then you picked Scorsese, as did I, but we picked different movies because you're going to watch Taxi Driver, which is an all-timer. Definitely a movie that should be seen as far as his filmography. And then you picked, you love Tim Burton, but you have not seen Big Eyes, one of his more mainstream.
The only blind spot I have with Tim Burton, so.
And I haven't seen it either, so I might watch that one as well. I think it's on Netflix, so I'm gonna.
It is on Netflix, yes.
Yeah, and for mine, I went a little older because most of these guys like Spielberg or Tarantino or some of those guys, or Carpenter, I've seen pretty much their entire filmography, so I went a little older with some of my picks. So I also went Scorsese, but I'm gonna watch a movie I've already blind bought a while back on Criterion, Last Temptation of Christ, which I've never seen, so I'm gonna watch that. And then I went a little older with Billy Wilder, who I'm getting really into lately with Witness for the Prosecution and Sunset Boulevard and a bunch of those movies I've seen lately. So I'm going to watch The Apartment, which I also own. Yeah, so I'm going to watch The Apartment. Very excited about that. Francis Ford Coppola, I'm going to watch The Conversation, his other 70s movie that is very acclaimed that I've been wanting to sit down and watch with Gene Hackman. I love me some Gene Hackman, so watch some of that. I'm going to do John Ford, and I'm going to do a double feature for my John Ford because it's 2 of his westerns, 2 John Wayne westerns, The Searchers and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. So I'm going to fill in some more of my western gaps, but I've been on a western kick the last couple of years. And then Howard Hawks, another old school, epic filmmaker. He did a western called Rio Bravo with John Wayne that I've heard good things about as well. So I'm going to watch. I'm not that big on John Wayne in general, but these are some of his better ones that are more kind of critically acclaimed, a little darker. That people like Tarantino talk about a lot. He talks about Rio Bravo and Liberty Valance a lot. So I'm hoping that'll kind of put it over the edge, and some good side casts in that one as well. So yeah, so we're going to each watch some movies from directors that we're interested in, and we're going to check out. So that should be fun. So yeah. And then I've got an idea for a decade one we're going to do about a month from now, but we'll talk about that later. It's already run by Jacob. So yeah, we're still working on that one. All
Yeah, I
right.
think I've got my list for that just about ready. So that's
We'll talk about that one off the air, and when we finally got it all hammered out, we'll present it to everybody. So yeah, because I've got my list for that one as well.
So,
and about a month and a half from now, we're gonna do for Jacob. I already told him we're gonna do a musicals episode. I'm gonna indulge him on a musicals episode, and we're each gonna pick some musicals to watch, like a list. And I've already got my list of ones I will go through and watch. At least I picked some interesting ones. Hopefully that'll be entertaining. So, and some interesting picks that I ran by him. So we will do a musical episode. So either he can pick first times, kind of like My Fair Lady, or if there's some other ones you want to talk about or showcase, or some of your favorites you just want to talk about, we'll talk some musicals at some point, probably next month and a half, 2 months. So yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah, a lot of fun with that. And I would say join us in 10 minutes for Raincone, but unfortunately, Malcolm is without power, so that is being postponed till next week. Unfortunately, we may not be the same panel as
and it's not going to be the Lonely Marks presents Rank 'em this week, as it was going to be.
Yeah, it was going to be the four of us and Malcolm, me, myself, Richie. Yeah. So
we're gonna slide right over to Malcolm's channel and do a rank 'em with the Lonely Marks about the spinoff movies. So yeah, we'll have to wait next week for that.
Yeah, so that's fine because that'll give me some time to watch some more. I actually watched Get Him to the Greek this week for that.
Oh, okay.
And and I won't go into it too much, but I enjoyed it for the most part. So yeah, it was.
Well, maybe when we're off the air, I'll just if Jacob ends up being on the show next week and not me, because I'll be working, I can he can be my representative and try to push for some of my movies. Nominate for me as a proxy vote. So yeah, right. Sounds good, man.
Yeah, that's our show for today. Highly recommend. Well, not highly recommend, but I do recommend like all the movies that at least I talked about, and I'm sure Austin recommends the ones he talked about. It wasn't no negatives this week, which was good.
Yeah.
So
like I said, I talked about Lightyear, but I wanted to keep it positive, and we'll just leave that off. And I might end up talking about that anyways on Wednesday night for me and Henry Confidential show. So we'll do that. You know, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, we'll be doing Toy Story rankings and all that. So
yeah, maybe once I watch it, we can do. It doesn't have to be like on a podcast about movies, but maybe we just go live for like a short 20-30 minutes or whatever and do like a Pixar tier list. It would be fun to kind of see where our consensus would be
for that. Well, I mean, you know,
because we don't have to go in depth on all of them,
right? And we could eventually do a Pixar show on here, although I will say my later Pixar, I have a lot of blind spots, but we could talk about maybe some of our top 5 personal like Pixar movies of all time. Maybe do like just not necessarily like, you know, talk about every single one, but we could each come up with our own personal list of like top 5 Pixar movies or something, or top 10 or whatever you want to do. And we could just talk about that in general. So yeah, and that way we could keep it positive and just talk about the ones we really like, the ones we want to talk about. So there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, be on the lookout for more stuff coming to the channel. Of course, we've got tier ranker and tournament fights. I believe is it 70s action this week with the.
So yeah, tomorrow night, Sunday night, we've got 70s action movies. We're continuing the action series. So we've got a heavy action week actually this week because we've got 70s action, but we're gonna have Mark Everett Hoyk and Kaiser and Vinny Mancuso and who am I missing? Oh, Adam Witt, all from the Schmodown on that show because they were all interested in talking about some old school 70s action movies. So that's on Sunday, and then Tuesday
for a 7-hour show.
Oh boy, I mean it's tier ranker where we have that, but yet it's still going to be a 4-hour tier ranker. You watch, you know, even
it's going to be the 2-hour mark, and you're going to have 6 movies on the list.
I know, yeah. Usually by then we have like at least 15 or 20 movies kind of thrown around the rankings, and yeah, there's going to be like 5 movies on the list, and we talk because you know I'm going to tell everybody a minute a piece, and it's going to end up being 8 minutes a piece. Yeah, totally. But then we'll get back to normal with a more familiar panel on Tuesday. And we're doing 90s action, but we're splitting it because 90s is packed full of action. I mean, there's so many that we couldn't just do one episode. So we're doing 1990 through 94. So Yeah, I have a highly suspicion that Speed might be near the top. A couple of those types of movies. Terminator 2. Yeah, there's some obvious ones, but there's some other ones I'm gonna try to sneak in there that I'm a big fan of. So we'll see. Some
Yeah.
sneaky ones. I mean, you know how much I like Predator 2. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it before that. So I'm pushing for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm on that episode, but if somebody drops
Okay.
out,
Sure.
you
You're always
who
kind of in
knows?
the wings, hanging out after
Yeah,
work watching.
yeah.
So yeah, you can jump in.
Who knows? I'll have to look because I 90s in general are like a big blind spot for me.
Blind
Like
spot.
post 2000, like yeah, I'm pretty good,
You know
but
what we should do one time then? We should do a 90s throwback episode and just do maybe something similar that we did it with our years, but maybe just, you should pick like blind spots for each of those years and watch stuff, whether it's like the
oh, that'd
family
be
films
fun.
or animated films or some action movies or whatever.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I've seen pretty much all the 90s stuff. Like I've seen a lot of 90s movies. So like I would just maybe pick different movies from each of those years, some other movies to showcase. But maybe we'll do another, back to the '90s episode or something. So we'll do something like that. And get your '90s filled in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and also a new series that's going to be coming.
Uh-oh.
It a it's a quick like I made this logo in
Oh,
like 5 minutes using like whatever app is already on my computer. But it's
yeah.
a series that's going to be my favorite movie. So
Mhm.
where myself and whoever we just sit down and we talk about their favorite movie
Mhm.
for 10-15 minutes and just give them a chance to gush about why they love it so much. I've gotten quite a few responses on that actually. So hopefully, I can just get back to them and start just pumping those out. That's not going to be a set time, so it's important to have that bell on
Well, and
and be notified.
that's one of those things is not everybody has the same favorite movie of all time. Everybody, pretty much, yeah, you might find a crossover every now and then. Maybe people like, Pulp Fiction or Jaws or something like that, is their favorite movie of all time. But, I mean, just look at the two of us. Mine is Aliens and yours is what, Good Will Hunting at this point, or is it still Good
At
Will
this point,
Hunting?
it's Mary Poppins. My top three are all interchangeable though. Like
Gotcha. Any given day. Yeah, because it was Sweeney Todd. It was like Good Will
yeah,
Hunting.
Sweeney Todd, Goodwill Hunting, Mary Poppins.
Yeah,
Those are the top three.
right. Well, I mean, we could always do one, and you could always start your own show by talking about Mary Poppins first, and I could kind of interview you about Mary Poppins, but also talking about it myself because it's one of my favorites.
Right.
And then, we can kick it off, and then I could talk about Aliens, obviously, which I've talked about the pieces, but I love talking about Aliens. And then, yeah, get other people from the community on here to talk 15 minutes on why, you know, Jordan's is I think still Logan at this point. He can talk about why he loves Logan so much, and whatever. Just get all kinds of different people on here talking about it. It's a good idea.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to start that this week. We'll see. Again, it just depends
Jacob's
on life.
he's hoping to get and hoping to secure, and then he'll see what his schedule is.
Yes.
So he
I
gets
have
a
an
job.
interview on Monday at 11, and I'm hoping that goes well. I highly recommend you guys don't just quit your job before having something else lined up.
Right.
Um,
But luckily, a lot of people right now are hiring, so it's not terribly hard to find something if you just look around. So there are job opportunities as well.
yeah.
So I hope you get it, man. Hope you get a job, and hope you
Me
like
too.
it.
It's a part time thing, but it's also it's something and it pays the
Mm-hmm.
bills. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
There you go.
and if it's only part time, it gives me more time to do stuff like this.
Yeah. Watch
So
movies. Watch, Cutthroat Island. Watch
yeah,
Rennie Harlan movies. Yeah, me. It's I happen to have. I've got like a sort of a 3-day weekend, which never happens ever for me unless I ask for it. So yeah, I took the opportunity to kind of watch some stuff extra for this. Tomorrow will be a few last minute things for the '70s action show, which I watched Juggernaut and a couple other movies the last couple of days. The Seven Ups, which is a Roy Scheider movie, from the '70s, and I'll probably squeeze in one or two more tomorrow. So, yeah, just watching movies, man. I didn't, and then going to the theater to watch Top Gun again and go to the theater. Just movie. It's been a movie-centric 3-day weekend. So, yeah, but that's never a bad thing, man. Seeing all kinds of stuff and having a good time. And you certainly had your own movie marathon. So,
I did, and yeah, and no movie was they were all very different movies. That's what I love about doing it. So yeah, I highly recommend. Like maybe not a 24-hour, but if you can do like a 12-hour.
No, I actually recommend
you're just meeting
things like if you could do a 12-hour, which I've done before, and what I would recommend is 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. because what you do is you schedule. You start at 10, maybe after breakfast, and you're ready to go. You watch something. You watch like 2 movies. You order some pizza. You get some pizza. You get refreshed. Have a beer or 2. You put on and the programming is essential because you have to either do some heavier movies, some lighter movies, or different genres. Like you have to mix it up, and then you program a big banger at the end for like 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, like some big blockbuster or some banger or some crazy horror movie or something crazy at the end. There's ways to do it. So yeah, I've done 12-hour ones, which are doable. They're not bad. Like a 10 to 10 or a 9 to 9 or something is not bad. But yeah, 24 is tough. Hats off to anybody.
But it was fun.
Ambitious. Jacob was being ambitious.
Don't. I don't feel like a failure here because I didn't complete it. Because I woke up well rested,
which was close. 16. You got close. You were about 4 movies away from making it. 3 or 4 movies away. I
actually ended up watching 7 because there were a few that were like 90. Like Godzilla was 90 minutes. Critters is 90 minutes. So
it's important if you're doing a marathon to schedule 90-minute movies and not just filling out long movies to fill out the time. It's important to hit those 80, 90-minute movies in the middle of those things. Like if you program something longer, but then do a quick one, and then something longer and a quick one. Like you need those blow off breezy movies. And that's where horror movies are critical because so many of them are like 90 minutes, Jacob. Like there's the horror movies that play a good part because 90% of most horror movies are like 80, 90 minutes tops, except for like, you'll get goofy ones that are longer, like The Shining or something. But like, most, especially like 80s, 90s horror movies, man, are like quick 90 minutes. That's the breezy. That's why I've always liked them.
Yeah, but that was the main reason for scheduling Critters right after 7 Samurai. Like,
there you go. You need that pull off, man. You need that easy breezy, silliness. You have to. It's critical.
And do not schedule movies to try to get as close to 12 hours as you can. If it's a total of 11 hours, like that gives you time to go for and walk around the block or something.
There's podcasts and things they do in between to space it out a little bit too is they program trailers as well to like lead into something you're about to watch. So you watch like 5 movie trailers that are kind of similar to what you're about to do, and that kind of spreads it out as well. So you watch trailers like on YouTube or something. They're similar. So there's always things you can do to spread it out. And you take a break. You take a 15-minute break in between some of the movies too. There's nothing wrong with that, man. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I pop out the disc and I pop out the new disc like right immediately. Take a 10-minute break and then keep going. So yeah.
All right, so that is our show. Again, join us.
I'll have to program for us, and this would take some coordination because we'd have to know if we were both off on the same day. But if we were both theoretically off on the same day, Jacob, I could program us a 12-hour marathon, would you be down if I programmed one?
I would be like if you were, if you were to do it, we'd have to coordinate a little bit because of the time difference.
Yeah.
So I'm starting earlier, you're starting later, and you have to
noon for me, 9 a.m. for you, so that I could end at like midnight and you end at like 9 p.m. You know what I mean? So it'd have to be similar to that. And then not that we would record the same day, but like we do the marathon and then the next week, like talk about the movie marathon. You know what I mean? Like talk about and our experience with the marathon and like where we were at mentally and stuff. And I could even do what I was talking about and program like trailers to watch in between, like be like, hey, go on YouTube or pull up your phone or on your TV and watch these 3 trailers before the next movie. You know what I mean? Stuff like that to get you in the mood. And then like, and then watch this. a mix of genres and like stuff that's available on streaming, so it'd be easy to find if you didn't already own it, things like that. But I might do that. I might like start working on that, and like I'll just put it in the back. I'll do it, put it in the back pocket, and then if we could ever work
there,
schedule-wise,
pull it out.
if we're ever like, hey, we're both off on a Friday and we're gonna just do it on our day off, and we could text each other back and forth during it, and then do the show like the next week or whatever. We could do that and take a week off and just to do the marathon, and then come back and talk about it. That'd be fun. I think we should do that one. Interesting. Yeah, not a 24, a little 12. It's doable. It be like 6-7 movies, something like that. Kind of what you did, kind of what you sort of did, spread it out, but like program it, time wise. So that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of good stuff coming to not only the show but to the channel as well. So watch it all. Tier Anchor, Tournament Fights. Jordan's doing some Snack Hero reviews. And Austin even joins him every once in a while.
I work at the store, so I find stuff around the store every now and then. So yeah, but all kinds of stuff going on. Check it out.
And be on the lookout. My favorite movies. Hopefully this week I can get some people to sit down for 15 minutes and we'll start that series. And maybe it's not just your favorite movie of all time. Maybe we bring you back for your second favorite movie of all time. If you really want to champion that as well. So it's not just we're not just saying, hey, you can only talk about your favorite movie of all time. Yeah. It's a serious idea. That's just the name of it. I didn't want to.
Well, you think you've added the S on there, so it's not my favorite movie. It's my favorite movies. So it could be your top 3 favorite movies or your top 5 favorite movies.
That is a Google image that I found.
There you go.
The theater background, and then I found the my favorite movie.
I don't know how you got that. I don't know how you got that audience to just sit down and watch a show you haven't done yet. But props to you for getting the pre-sales on that one. They're watching
I'm just very good at marketing.
They're waiting for you right now, Jacob. You should probably get on that because they're just sitting in that theater, just waiting for something to start right now, and it hasn't started yet.
But yeah, lots of good stuff coming to the channel. So subscribe, like, share the videos, hit the bell because it's never quite the same time. Sometimes it's 9 o'clock, sometimes it's 9:30 for Tier Anchor and Tournament Fights. So just be aware of that because life happens and we're human. So join us sometime next week for Jurassic Park, and we hope to see you then. Take it easy, guys.